You are listening to Viewpoints from PlaceCloud. Cultural researchers tell stories of places from around the world. For the full multimedia experience and to support the creators you enjoy, visit placecloud.io.
We are now at the Ricardo Brennand Institute located in the Várzea neighbourhood in Recife. This space occupies an area of approximately 80,000 square meters and is home to a sculpture park, an art gallery and a museum. Inaugurated in 2002 to simulate a large medieval castle surrounded by a sculpture garden, it was built to house the personal collection of Pernambuco industrialist Ricardo Brennand. A collector of art and historical artifacts, Brennand had a great interest in the Dutch period that lasted from 1630 to 1654 in the northeast of Brazil, and particularly in the years when Count Maurice de Nassau ruled between 1637 and 1644. As is well known, like Brennand, Nassau was an enthusiast for the arts and sciences and brought with him scientists and artists who were unknown in Holland but who have become eternalized in the memory of the people of Pernambuco, such as the portrait painter Albert Eckhout, the cartographers Georg Margraaf and Cornelis Goliath, the engineer Pieter Post and his brother, the painter Frans Post. The Ricardo Brennand Institute has the world's largest collection of works by Frans Post, whose work in Pernambuco in the 17th century established him as the first landscape painter in the Americas. The Institute's Pinacoteca has 15 of his canvases, including the only one painted in Brazil, Fort Frederik Hendrik. However, it is important to remember that Frans Post's work and other historical records from that period reflect the vision of their authors and European patrons. Just like historical texts, these productions can carry the ideological and cultural biases of their creators. For this reason, historical research plays a fundamental role in demystifying the works through their proper temporal, social, and cultural contexts. In the case of the Dutch period in Brazil, the narratives were often molded by the interests of the parties involved. Publications of the time exalted the homeland, its leaders and their religious beliefs, whether Catholic or Protestant, according to which side was writing them. However, it is worth emphasizing that both narratives, whether Portuguese or Dutch, came from invaders, completely ignoring the perspectives of Brazil's native peoples. Until the end of the 19th century and much of the 20th, knowledge about the Dutch period in Brazil was dominated by Portuguese chroniclers, such as those that recounted the Pernambuco Restoration Wars, fought from 1645 and culminating in the expulsion of the Dutch in 1654. Among the most famous authors are Friar Manuel Calado, author of O Valoroso Lucideno e o Triunfo da Liberdade, that is the Brave Lucideno and the Triumph of Liberty from 1648, Duarte de Albuquerque Coelho, who wrote Memorias Diárias de la Guerra del Brasil, Daily Memories of the War for Brazil, from 1654, Diogo Lopes Santiago with Historia de Guerra de Pernambuco, History of the War of Pernambuco, from 1634, Francisco de Brito Freire, author of Nova Lusitania, Historia de Guerra Brasílica, that is New Lusitania, History of the Brazilian War from 1676, and Friar Rafael de Jesus, who wrote the Castriotto Lusitano in 1679, where the mentioned Castriotto might be a reference to an Albanian freedom fighter. On the Dutch side, we can mention Johannes de Laat, author of the book New World or Descriptions of the West Indies, which had its first edition published in Leiden in 1625, describing the taking of Bahia. In 1640, a new edition was published, now in French, which describes the capture of Pernambuco and Itamaracá in 1630, Rio Grande do Norte in 1634, and Paraíba in 1635. In 1651, Pierre Moreau wrote The History of the Last Troubles in Brazil between the Dutch and the Portuguese, reporting as a witness during the last years of the occupation of Brazil. In 1682, Johan Niehoff wrote a book entitled Memorable Voyage by the Sea of Brazil, including everything that happened there, also dealing with the period of conflicts that culminated in the expulsion. It is in this context that the Ricardo Brennand Institute stands out as an essential place for anyone wishing to understand the Dutch period in Brazil. The institute inherited nothing less than the personal library of José Antonio Gonçalves de Mello, the most prominent historian and researcher on Dutch Brazil, with a collection of 5,000 books, 489 of which are dedicated exclusively to the subject. Visitors can explore other 17th century rarities, such as works by Dutchman Johannes de Laat, Caspar Barleyus, William Piso, and Georg Margraaf. A copy of Castriotto Lusitano by Friar Rafael de Jesus, printed in 1679, is on display. The legacy of Nassau and the artists in his entourage has transcended time, being revered in museums such as the Louvre in Paris and the Mauritshuis in The Hague. But it is here in Recife that we have the unique opportunity to experience the history in such a complete and engaging way, in a space voted the best museum in Latin America and the 17th best in the world, according to TripAdvisor. A tip for visitors is the quality of the coffee at the cafe, which serves some of the most traditional delicacies of Pernambuco, not surprising for a state whose wealth and prestige in the colonial period came from the cultivation of sugarcane. For a taste of the classics, ask for a slice of bolo de rolo, bolo Suzaleão, or the so-called bolo de noiva, a fruity sweet typical of weddings for the local elite. You won't regret your decision.